everybody. Welcome. This is Caitlin Lung speaking. I'm your teen programming librarian. We're just waiting for our presenters to get all situated right now. But in the meantime, please note that the chat and the Q&A are enabled. So please feel free to use those if you have any questions, if you want to say hi, if you want to engage with each other or our presenters. That's totally okay, and it is encouraged. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We're going to let people trickle in and get going here. But again, thank you so much for coming. I really do appreciate you taking your time out of a school day to join us here. So,
how does it look now?
Perfect.
It's showing?
Yep, it's showing.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I can't see any faces right now. I don't know if I will be able to see any faces, but that's okay. I kept my hat backwards because the audience I heard is teen, so I'm just trying to keep it young and hip. My name is Sydney Oleinka. I work with Boston Private Wealth Management in Beverly Hills, California. And I'm one of the volunteers for our bank's community investment team in Los Angeles. So I help at work manage the investments for relatively high net worth individuals. And I take what I learned from there to give back to the community and teach financial literacy and help demographic communities that are vulnerable and at risk of incurring debt or just in dire need of financial education. So with that, my aim at the end of this presentation, as nervous as I am, is just to educate you guys and let you know the importance of budgeting and how critical budgeting is to even understanding other areas of finances like investing and so on and so forth. So we'll take it from there. And let's see how to do it. So the format of the class, everybody's on mute right now, but if you have any questions, there's the chat box. We have an administrator that's going to be paying attention to the chat box. So if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt, and Joanne will let me know that you guys have asked a question, and I'll stop in the middle of my presentation so that those questions get answered. And then in addition, at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A session where we can have more time dedicated to answering your questions. But in the meantime, everybody's going to be muted. Okay, so let's get into it. Also, when I ask questions like this in the slides, feel free to bombard the chat box with your answers, and Joanne will unmute herself and read out a couple of the answers that you guys provide. As much participation you guys can participate in, the better. So first question.
Sorry to interrupt. Just letting you know the slides are a little small, so would you mind clicking Start Slideshow?
Absolutely.
If you want to start the slideshow, you can go to the slideshow menu at the top and then click Start Slideshow.
And so you guys are seeing not
We're
just
seeing your full PowerPoint window.
Okay. Better?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So first question is, what did you guys do with your last sum of Christmas money? I know that was almost a year ago, but what did you guys do with your Christmas money last Christmas? For those of you who got cold hard cash. Wow. So I'll give it about 40 more seconds. I hope y'all are telling the truth. This is overwhelmingly no's. 80% no so far. So I'll give it 15 more seconds and we can end the polling at 1 minute. All right. So here are the statistics that you guys shared. 18% of you said you spent all of your Christmas money, and 82% of you said that you did not. So if we can do another poll on spot, and I can give about 20 seconds, I'm curious, what did you do with this spending money? Did you save it? Did you give it away? Did you invest it? I don't know how many people are into investing actively these days. If we could do a poll for that, that would be
Actually,
awesome.
some folks have already answered in the chat box, which is great. So some of them said they didn't get any Christmas money, but a few of them got new shoes.
Okay.
One started a debit card. A few saved the money and set it aside. So a lot of variety of answers today.
Excellent. Okay, I can take this. What's going on here? Okay, so looking back on it, I want to know, well, let's focus on the different answers that we got. So for those of you who got shoes, I hope you kept them clean. For the participant that said she started a debit card, that's fantastic. And for any of the participants who saved it, that's also good. If anybody spent all of it, you're young, you can bounce back. It's one Christmas sum of money, that's okay. But one thing that I want you to keep in mind is to ask yourself, whatever you do spend your money on, be real with yourself and ask yourself, is it worth it? Because 6 months down the line, a few months down the line, sometimes a week down the line, depending on how much funds you have available to you, the things that we spend money on are sometimes not worth it. And when we actually need the money, if we didn't save, then those funds are no longer available for us to use. So that was a small question where we're focusing on just Christmas money. And we're starting small, but now I want you to start thinking bigger picture. A lot of you are young and a lot of you have dreams and ambitions. And a lot of those dreams and ambitions is going to take a lot of discipline. It's going to take being a visionary, and it's also going to take funds. I can't speak for you on what your goals are going to be, but for those of you who've been thinking about it, some of those ideas are pretty big, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's encouraged. So now we're going to think big picture. Christmas money, it's not that much in comparison to winning the lottery. I want to know, what would you do if you won the lottery? I think poll questions are usually yes or no. So I'm going to focus on not poll, but what the answers that you put in the chat box. And I'll give you a few seconds to think about it and put it in the chat box. If you won, let's say $10 million next week, where's that money going? And I want truthful answers. And Joanne, feel free after about 30 more seconds to let me know.
Yeah, the participants are super active in this question, which is amazing. A lot of the answers I'm seeing are investing and saving it. So generally, investing and saving seems to be a popular answer. Some are saying they'd like to buy a house or maybe an apartment building, maybe buy a car, set it aside for college tuition. Somebody would spend half of it and save the other half, which I think I would do myself. You know, got to have some fun with that lottery money, in my opinion.
Yes.
Let's see. Oh, and somebody said they would invest to get more money, but that also depends on the lottery tax. So good point about that. Let's see. Ooh, one good answer. Buy a fat mansion. That's with a PH and a new car. So it looks like investing and saving is the most popular option here. So thank you all for sharing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. And that's what I like to hear. So a variety of great answers there. I'm excited to touch on a couple of those. Tax is very important to consider for the participant who talked about taxing, because I'm going to put some infographic slides later just so you can have an idea of percentages of how much people get taxed depending on how much they're now making. But if you win $10 million next week, you are definitely going to be in a new tax bracket. And with that means you're actually not going to get the full $10 million. You might get 63% of it after tax. Don't quote me on that, but you're not going to get the full 100%. So you definitely have to take taxing into consideration. For whoever said they would buy a house, that's actually a great investment, providing that you buy it in a nice location. And in that location, that house can appreciate in value over time. You could buy the house for $1 million, and in 2024, that house can be valued at $1.8 million. And it's still your house, but your house is now valued more than what you bought it at. And the extra equity, which is the increase in value of your investment, the house, you could, when you sell that house, you have $800,000 extra. Whoever said that they would sell or they would save half, invest half, spend the rest, that's perfectly fine too. With $10 million, you can afford to do that. But I'm going to go into this next slide, and this next slide touches on the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. Now, it's not a hard-lined rule. You can play with these numbers a little bit depending on how much money you're working with. But typically, this is a good foundation to kind of allocate your money responsibly. So if we take a look at this slide, you know, there are wants, there are savings, and there are needs. The most primary and most important thing is to take care of your needs. The fat house is not needed. It would be in the wants section, but you definitely need housing. You need to eat. You need to pay for electricity. You need to pay for health insurance. You need to pay for a car, unless you live somewhere where transportation, cars aren't necessary. But if you're living in California, it's pretty necessary. After you've allocated those funds towards needs, you can now focus on putting the rest of your funds in savings. And then after you've done your due diligence and you've saved 20% of your available money, you can now start playing around with wants and allocate 30% of your funds to wants. Now that's providing we're still in this $10 million lottery scenario. Let's make this a little bit more realistic, and let's focus on a more reasonable income, which we'll get to later. But this, just remember this rule, this budgeting rule. This is a safe foundation. It's for most people to allocate their money accordingly in a way where savings is represented, their needs are represented, and their wants can be taken care of as well. So here is a tax breakdown just for your knowledge, just so you know that whatever you're making in the future, whatever income you're making, whether it's monthly income or you're getting paid bi-weekly, you're going to be taxed based off of how much income you make at the end of the year. So if you have no job and you were to win $10 million next week, you would be at the very highest tax bracket, which is 37%. That's for people who have an income of $510,000 a year or more. I'm not in that category. If anyone is in that category that's participating, feel free to mention your name in the chat, and I personally will call you to offer my wealth management services. But I don't think anyone here is making that, but strive for those goals because that's a comfortable place to be in. I can't emphasize how important it is to budget. Unfortunately, we can't put a YouTube video right now. I don't. A lot of the YouTube videos I found were a little bit too long. But for anybody in the chat box, and anyone participating, feel free to put in the chat box. If you are an aspiring athlete, you want to be a professional tennis player, basketball player, football player, an actress, any of those professions that, or a musician that could potentially win you a lot of money, a lot of income, you don't want to be broke. And the sad fact is a lot of professional athletes, a lot of professional actresses and musicians have gone broke due to poor money management. You can YouTube some of this later on your own. There's so many, and it's very sad. And we can just look at a couple of these little infographics inside this picture and focus on why some people go broke and why some people stay rich. So on the broke side, you have people who feel like they're not getting paid well. You know, if you're in high school and you're working at maybe the local smoothie shop or you're a barista at Starbucks, you know, those are starting jobs, and they're typically to allow you to pay for your Netflix, pay for your phone bill if your parents make you pay for your phone bill, go to the movies, which you can't go to right now because of quarantine, sorry. Take your boo out to the movies or so on and so forth, little entertainment things. You're not necessarily working to fend for yourself completely. If I'm wrong, put in the chat box and let me know. But for the most part, a lot of your money right now, you're getting into the job market, and this is a good opportunity for you to learn that you will get taxed. You will make an hourly wage that is not that much above the minimum wage, federal minimum wage or state. but it's an educational experience. You will be able to pay for certain things for yourself. You'll be able to help your family a little bit around the house with buying snacks, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're not paying for rent yet, and you should be happy about that. People that go broke only know how to spend, and the media has a huge contribution to this. When you see Rihanna in music videos or whoever your favorite musicians are, sometimes they're living lavish. They're buying huge houses. They have the best cars. And all that's being promoted is spending, 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 because it's not, for lack of better words, it's not sexy to talk about saving. Sometimes it's not sexy to talk about investing, but it's necessary. If you're an impulsive shopper, if you're always on e-commerce sites, Amazon, and you're just buying, 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 you're racking up a lot of things that you won't be able to sell at the same value or close to it when you don't want it anymore. And those are liabilities, which we'll touch on later. Piggy bank is a pretty childish way of saying savings, but a lot of people need to start opening up savings account and taking joy in filling that up with as much funds as they can, and taking joy in learning how to discipline themselves to not spend on things that they may want, but also realize psychologically they will not need in the future. Now, how rich people stay rich? They find the jobs that pay the best. And I'm going to touch on a few of those that may interest you in a little bit. They know how to save their money. They know how to get great deals. If they can find something for cheaper on another website, they're going for that. They're not going for the first price point that's presented to them. And they budget. Okay. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. So that's the introduction into what we're going to go into today. In this presentation, my goal is to teach you the primary components of budgeting, which I'll just give you a little precursor, is literally on a piece of paper or on your phone, there are apps for this, listing your expenses and then having a budget. Your budget is going to be limited to how much you make. And if how much you make exceeds what your expenses are, you're in better shape. If your expenses add up to be more than what your budget is, you need to cut down those expenses somehow, some way. All right. I'm gonna teach you the different types of income. The standard ones that we know are, your hourly wages. Some people, you may be experiencing this from summer internships. I don't know what the grade levels are for my participants here, but if you're about to be, a senior in high school, you may have engaged in an internship where they pay you summer salary. Maybe not. But there are different ways people get income. Some people it's hourly. Some people it's a yearly salary broken into 12 months. Some people, and I'm going to touch on this later, are maybe social media influencers, and you get paid per post for Instagram or TikTok. And that stream of income is not always consistent. And because of its inconsistency, you have to have the discipline to know where your money is going and how to save a portion of that money until you get more income. So those are irregular income streams that we'll touch on a little bit later. We're going to talk about fixed versus variable expenses. We're going to talk about short-term versus long-term goals, and how to keep your budget relevant and how to change it as your income changes. Because right now, out of the participants that we have, your mindset should be, I'm making this much now, or if you're not making any, that's okay. And by this time next year, I will be making more. Should always have that mindset. If you want to be more aggressive and say, next month, I'm going to be making more, just know that your budget will evolve with your change of income. All right, here's another participant activity. I want you guys to think about it for a second. Think about your short-term goals. Think about your intermediate goals and your long-term goals. I'll tell you the difference. Short-term is before the end of the year. It's about 1 to 12 months. I believe intermediate is 1 to 5 years, and long-term is 5 years plus. Think about what your goals are and share it in the chat. We'll touch on those. Sorry, I keep doing that, my bad. There you go. Joanne, do we have any questions in the chat box so far?
Not yet. Looks like everybody's trying to figure out who goes to which high school or middle school. So everybody go ahead and type in the chat box, as Sydney said, what are your goals?
I went to St. John Bosco High School, for any of y'all that want to know what high school I went to. It's in Bellflower. We're the best
All
at
right.
football.
We got our first few responses. Someone said to become a neurologist, a game developer. One is very general, to have a good job and life when they're older. In the short term, this is a great list. In the short term, one wants to buy a better computer. An intermediate goal for the same person is to go to college and get married, get a good job. And then long term is to retire and live in a nice home. Awesome. Another one is to become an NFL player and have a good house. Let's see. Ooh, filmmaker, therapist. So it sounds like a lot of folks are talking about what their career aspirations are. One wants to become a studio musician, a physics teacher, veterinarian. Oh, a long-term goal I see is to live in Paris. Yes, that's amazing. And then lastly, there's one last response here. Short-term is to get good grades, intermediate, start a bakery business, and long-term, have a good education. Thank you all for sharing.
Those are a fantastic set of goals, very diverse. And I love that in here, the same thing, keeping it authentic and unique. So just right off the cuff, I'm just going to let all of you know right now, I don't know if all your goals are to be a millionaire, but as a physics teacher, as a bakery business owner, definitely as a professional football player, as a video game developer, you can all become millionaires. All of you, without a doubt. Budgeting will be essential, saving will be essential, and investing will be essential. I'm focusing on budgeting today, but stay tuned for a future investing talk presentation by one of our other volunteers in the future or myself. So when you're thinking about your goals, you definitely want your goals to fall under this SMART acronym. You want your goals to be specific so that you know exactly what you need to do to accomplish it. You can stay focused. You want those goals to be specific to you. You don't want to focus on what your parents' goals are for you or what your friends' goals are for you, because those can die off. You want to focus on what those goals mean to you. You want to make sure it's something that you really want, so that every time you wake up in the morning, you're focused on it. You want to have measurable goals. If you want to be a bakery business owner, you want to know, how many different pastries you want to have on display in your boutique. If you want to be a professional football player, you need to know what position you want to focus on and how many reps it's going to take for certain techniques to be the best at it. You want your goals to be action oriented. You want to know where you need to go. If you want to be a football player, you need to go to the gym. You want to be a bakery business owner, not only do you need to take business classes, probably, you need to take bakery classes. A video game developer, you need to play a lot of video games. You need to know your competition so that you can develop games that are even better. You want your goals to be reachable. All the goals that I heard Joanne read out are reachable. Now, if you are terrible at science, if you're not even interested in science and you want to be an astronaut, that might be an unreachable goal. But if you're a physicist and you want to be an astronaut as well, that's reachable. And time bound, you want to make sure that you have an idea of how long it's going to take for you to reach your goals. This type of goal thinking activity allows you to succeed in them. Something else should be on this slide. Oh, there we go. So, what is a budget? I'll let you know. A budget essentially is it's the framework that you're working within. It's a summary of planned expenses that you know you'll have with a planned income that you know you'll have for whatever time period. So if you're making $1,000 a month, that's $500 per biweekly paycheck, and your expenses monthly add up to about $650, you have $350 extra, and you can determine what you want to do with that. You can spend it, you can save it, you can spend a portion of it and save a portion of it. But that budget allows you to keep your wallet in check so that your expenses doesn't exceed the amount of money that you're bringing in, so that you're not in debt. The most common time period that people work with when it comes to budgets are monthly budgets, which are broken down into bi-weekly budgets. So you're in a monthly budget, you could get potentially 2 paychecks, and your bills can come at different times of the month, maybe on the first, maybe in the middle, maybe at the end. But if you allocate your budget to take care of those expenses, you should be in good shape. As you get older and you have more money coming in, your budget will change, because just as more money is coming in, you will have more responsibilities. You may have more bills. If you can keep your expenses low while you're making more, that allows you to invest more and save more, which will provide you more leeway to pursue your passions without worrying about the income coming in. Okay. A budget also allows you to track your expenditures. So we're going to do an activity today, not right now, but in a few minutes, where you're going to list out all the things that you may be paying for now, or you can see yourself paying for in the very foreseeable future. Okay. So here's the basics of the budget. You have 3 components that we talked about just a few seconds ago. You have your income, that's money coming in. You have your expenses, that's money going out. And when you subtract your expenses from your income, you could be with money left over, you could be at exactly 0, or you can be in the negative. Now, income can come in different ways. You can earn your income through whatever job you have. You can have gifted income, which is like allowances that you get from your parents. You can have a portfolio, which is a basket of investments, which we won't talk too much about, but just to get your minds to think about it before you maybe sign up for an investing class. Investing is, to put it simply, is putting your money on the performance, on the potential for positive performance for companies that you want to invest in. Say Apple, for example. You can invest in Apple. You know that they're coming out with the new iPhone, and you have confidence that the products that they're going to be bringing out in the next year, 2 years are going to be fantastic products. You know that Apple TV are starting to have much better TV shows. And you are also aware that Apple is starting to touch into other spaces like cloud services that are competing better than Amazon's cloud services. And you're so confident that Apple is going to continue to have this upward trend of just fantastic products. Apple Music is getting better. I personally like Spotify, but Apple Music is getting better. All these things are getting better. And you want to invest in Apple. So you can essentially budget out a portion of your income to go towards investing in companies. So while you can have part of in your budget, you can create space for money to be saved in a savings account where, you don't touch the savings account. It can earn interest just for staying in the savings account, or you can take some of those funds and you can invest it in companies that you believe are going to increase in value. And from that, you are essentially making money by investing in the right companies that will bring you profit. Okay, so that's income. Now in the expenses, you have your expenses broken down into one of two categories. You have fixed expenses. For any of you that want to get a car soon, that's going to be a fixed expense. You're going to pay monthly car notes. And that car note is going to be the same for the most part until you finish paying off that car. That's a fixed expense. It's not variable. It's not going to change much. If you want to get a car, you have to get car insurance. For the most part, that's a fixed expense. Your Netflix, unless they increase the monthly bill to like $14, your Netflix bill is a consistent $12.99 a month. That's a fixed expense. So you get the picture of a fixed expense. It doesn't change much. Variable expense may be your entertainment. Before quarantine, you may have gone to the movies with your friends randomly. And that's a variable expense. You're not for sure going to the movies every weekend. Now that we can't even go to the movies, that variable expense, it's variable. The amount of money that you spend on going to restaurants, Chipotle, Jamba Juice, what have you, those are variable expenses. You don't know how much you may spend on entertainment or clothing or apps or any of these lifestyle components until you do. What a budget allows you to do is to take the income that you have, and for any of you who have a piece of paper by your side, and I'll give you a few seconds to go grab one, because this will help put things in perspective. For anyone who's making, let's just put a random number out there, $1,000 of income, a budget will essentially allow you to put in perspective how much money you can comfortably put into entertainment so that you're not going off the rails. If you're bringing in $1,000 a month or $500 bi-weekly, and your expenses, fixed expenses, bills essentially, comes up to 200. All right, that's $500 bi-weekly income every 2 weeks minus $200 going towards your fixed expenses. You now have $300 that are in the variable expenses range, and you can take out 75 to put into entertainment. You can take out 50 to go towards food. You can take out a portion of that money to go to different categories of your variable expenses. And at the end of that, you may have some left over, you may not. And we can play around with these numbers a little bit later, but just get your mind to start thinking about it. Here's a perfect sample pay stub. How many of you guys have jobs? I actually want to have an idea of this so that I know what to focus on for this presentation. Just throw it in the chat box. Let me know how many of you have jobs, and feel free to share if you're comfortable where you're working. If it's at the library, if it's at, or well, not right now at the library, but if it's at Jamba Juice, Starbucks, Lululemon, Abercrombie, you name it, Anthropologie, throw it in there. Or throw in where you'd like to work this soon, this next summer, yeah.
So far of the respondents, I have 2 yeses. Some of them aren't old enough yet to get a job. Some are looking. Let's see. One wants to work at Starbucks or a small grocery store. One works for a wedding company. So it's a mixed bag. Lots of want to get a job, or they work part-time.
Okay. Thank you. That helps put things in perspective. So this is what, for those of you who are working, you've probably seen this before. For those of you who will be working next summer, maybe, or sooner, you're going to get a pay stub every 2 weeks. Okay. And in your pay stub, it's going to say how many hours of work you worked within that pay stub. So this looks like this looks like the kind of pay stub you get every 2 weeks. Okay. And this person worked 40 hours a week, 80 hours for 2 weeks, essentially. And if you look at the hours section, they got a little bit of overtime, and their rate, they're making $17 an hour. With the way things are going, a lot of you could potentially be getting paid $17 an hour working for Starbucks or working for a local grocery store. And after taxes, because the government will take their portion, after taxes, you will have a net pay. Now, that number kind of hurts. You know, your gross pay just off of the hours that you worked multiplied by the rate that you're getting paid, $17 an hour, comes up to about $1,362 for 2 weeks. It's not bad as a teenager. That's actually fantastic money to be making as a teenager. Now, after taxes, the federal government will take their portion of tax. Some of your money will be taken and going to Social Security. That Social Security is where people who have retired or are ages 65 and older tend to get Social Security. It's the government's way of paying them back for all the years that they contributed to Social Security when they were working. You have a certain portion of tax going to Medicare. You have a certain portion of tax going to state. Then you have the transit tax and the workers' benefit fund. After you take out those taxes, and don't worry about the other deductions. That tends to be for people who work for corporations. Like personally, I work for a company that opens up a retirement account for me and my colleagues. So a portion of my money goes to 401k. That's a retirement account that you can pull from when you're now retired. You want that to grow as much as it can. And dental insurance, medical insurance. Aside from that, your net pay, I want you to focus on just the difference between net pay and gross pay. Your net pay, what you actually take home, what you actually can put in your bank account and cash out, is less than what your gross pay is. So when you're budgeting, you don't want to budget as if you're taking home your gross pay. You don't want to budget as if you're taking $1,300 home. You want to budget that net pay. Okay, so when you're looking at your expenses and you're looking at your income, you're looking at making $922 bi-weekly. And if you multiply that by 2, just to make sure everybody's awake and paying attention, what do you get? What's the number you get when you multiply your net pay bi-weekly? $922 times 2. That'll tell you what your monthly pay is. Get out them calculators. Feel free to answer in the chat box.
See some answers already. I'm seeing 1,844. Another guess is 1,944. A more precise one I see is $1,845.22.
Perfect. Someone used their calculator. Thanks for the other ones for trying. So this is bi-weekly. Now, if you multiply it by 2, that would be, your monthly would be the number that was last given. All right. A lot of your goals earlier, I heard physicist, I heard bakery business owner, I think I heard actress, I heard professional football player, I heard game developer, I heard teacher, I heard all kinds of beautiful things. We started small for what is in your range of possibility right now, unless some of you are closer to becoming video game developers than I can imagine, or some of you are closer to becoming musicians than I imagine. But let's think about what an irregular income could look like, where you're not getting paid bi-weekly or monthly, but you're getting paid irregularly. Okay? I'm pretty sure. How many of you guys are on social media? And if you are on social media, let me know what apps you're engaging in. Is it TikTok? Is it Pinterest? Is it Facebook, Instagram? Throw it in there. Throw it in the chat box.
All right, I'm seeing a couple of TikTok users. Someone uses Instagram and Snapchat. I see actually a few of those responses.
Okay.
Looks like TikTok is taking home the pie right now. I see Snap a lot too, Instagram, Discord.
Discord, I haven't heard of that one before.
I actually use Discord. I just learned of it. It's a
Really?
really cool chat. It's like Slack, but with video.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So thank you for participating. Um, back in the day, I mean, it still exists. I think Facebook actually owns Instagram, but Facebook was once hot. Instagram became hot. Now TikTok is hot. And a lot of the people with the largest followings are actually making an income off of having a large following. Some of you may know this, a lot of you may know this. If not, there's some news. And the income that they make from it is irregular. And here are some statistics. So, if you have a large following on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, TikTok wasn't that popping when this data was created. But you can see that if you have over 100,000 followers, you could be making um, an income of $12,500 annually. These are annual income performances, and if and if you're making if you have over 3 million followers, you could be making $187,000 annually. That's quite a lot of money to have just to have followers. Now, a lot of these individuals are doing amazing things. Some of them are teaching you how to work out in the most efficient and safe ways, and they're benefiting your lifestyle. Some of them are just musicians that are playing acoustics and doing really good at making music. Some of them are teaching other people how to bake. Some of them are doing financial presentations like this and educating people, and a lot of people are tuned in to what they have to say. All that is to say, although this money is how much they make annually, what's not shown here is how irregular that income comes. So, for example, let's get into the weeds of it a little bit more. Some people who are social media influencers make a portion of their income comes from their engagement on these social media outlets. So someone like Rihanna or someone like, what's her name again? It's not Kardashian. Is it Caitlyn Jenner? The one that's huge in makeup. Anyone know the answer to this? Which Jenner
That's
is
Kylie.
Kylie? There we go. Kylie Jenner could make out of the different media outlets that she's in, she could make 78% of her income on social media outlets specifically just from an Instagram post. She could post something and tag Versace, and Versace could pay her a portion just for advertising through her following, through her post. This type of income is irregular. It's not monthly. It's not weekly. And because of that, if let's say Calvin Klein paid Dak Prescott, who's a professional football player, to post a picture with Calvin Klein showing, holding a football, and decides to pay him $75,000 just for that post because they know there's a lot of people that are watching him. There are a lot of people that are following him. And if he's wearing Calvin Klein underwear, a lot of people are going to want to wear Calvin Klein underwear, specifically probably men. And that $75,000 may not come again unless he does another post. So it's important to take that money and think about the needs that you have, think about the wants that you have, and think about savings. And after your needs are met, let's say out of that $75,000, $25,000 meets your needs. You can now take the other $25,000, or if we're going according to the 50-30-20 rule, 37,500 can go to needs. I need to get my calculator out. $15,000 can go to savings, and $22,500 can go towards whatever you want. It could be video game system, whatever. That's just to tell you that when it comes to irregular income, you have to, your budget is going to look a little bit different. It's not going to be as consistent as a biweekly income. And with that, you should save more for the day where you'll need more. For those of you who are working, feel free to put in the chat box how much, what you spent on with your last paycheck, your last biweekly paycheck.
All right, we've got a few responses. Somebody bought a mouth guard, which is awesome. Let's take care of your jaw and your teeth. Food looks like the most common. Gas, I see. Makeup, clothes. So it looks like it's a good variety, but mostly food it looks like. Oh, and somebody didn't spend it yet. Okay.
Nice. Nice. I'm not sure what any of your responsibilities are financially, but is anyone that's a participant in here paying any bills by any chance? Are they subscribed to anything that they have to pay monthly?
I'm seeing no so far, except for somebody who helps with car insurance.
Okay. Okay, in that case then, it sounds like a lot of you are leaning towards the variable expenses, where if you borrow your parents' cars or have your own, you have to put gas in it. If you want some new shoes or want some new fits, you got to pay for the clothes yourself if it's not Christmas time or around your birthday. If you want to go out to eat, you got to have money to buy your own food wherever you want to go eat with your friends. Entertainment, you're spending your own money on entertainment. And essentially, if you do have a job, you're getting taxed, and there's also taxes like retail tax for things that you buy. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but this is just a reminder that your expenses will be in one of these categories. I will focus more on variable expenses for the rest of the presentation due to the fact that most of you guys are in that category. But keep in mind that having car payments, having car insurance, loan payments, they're not far off in your future. And for any of you who want to go to college, how many of you have been, how many of you are currently looking for colleges that you will apply to? Throw in there your grades. I want to know your grade levels. How many of you are in high school? What grade in high school? How many of you have started to think about college? How many of you want to go to college, have an idea where you want to go? Just shower that chat box with answers. Because loan payments is going to be huge for those of you who want to go to college. College can be expensive, and it is important to start budgeting for that if that's a goal in the future.
All right, I'm seeing anywhere from 7th grade to seniors in high school.
Okay.
And I see a couple of UC Berkeley hopefuls. I see an Alabama hopeful.
Okay. Is that the football guy? I feel like it is.
Possibly, actually. And one said that they don't know if they'll go to college, which is totally fine as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Great answers. Wide range of ages here. So depending on your goals, if for any chance the person wanting to go to Alabama is the same person that said they want to be a professional football player, you may be shooting for a football scholarship. And for a lot of people who want to go to college in general or thinking about it, you may want to do anything within your means now to get a scholarship, because that would reduce the amount of money that you would have to pay to go to college. Because college, depending on where you go and whether it's a public university or a private university, can range in expense. Public universities like UC Berkeley tend to be cheaper in tuition than, say, a private school like USC or Pepperdine or Harvard or any of these private schools. And the more money you can get in scholarships, the less money you would have to pay out of pocket, either upfront or through loans. Now, these things add up in the future, because if you were to take out loans for college, you have a certain amount of time, they call it grace period, from when you graduate university to when you get a first job, of when you don't have to immediately start paying back those loans. But once that grace period is over, you will have to pay back those loans in monthly installments, sometimes quarterly installments. So you may pay January, and then not February, not March, but then again in April, not May, not June, again in July. Those are quarterly. And you don't want to be in this predicament, but if you were, you would essentially have to get a job in order to make those payments. That's why it's good to start thinking about the future, so that you position yourself to be successful in the future in a variety of ways. And a lot of them, or one of them, is financially. So some of these things, when you think about it, kind of help shape the why for your goals, the why you're doing it, the measurable aspect to why you're doing it, why you want to be a successful bakery business owner, because you want to share with the world the treats that you make with the love and passion that you have for making pastries. and you also want that business to succeed, and you also want to make money to sustain yourself through that business. It's a multifactorial thing, and budgeting is so essential for all of those factors. In order to keep that business alive, you have to make sure that the money that you're spending on the things going into that business and the products, flour, milk, if you want to have more than just pastries and you want to have coffee, all those different things have costs. And you're also going to charge a price for, I'm going to focus on this example just so we can keep it in perspective. All of those different pastries that you create are going to have a price. And at the end of your listing of the expenses of how much everything costs, including the store that you would lease out for the community to come to your shop and buy your snacks, your pastries. All of those things are going to add up to a set cost. There's going to be fixed costs, and then there's going to be variable costs, and you may want to keep your variable costs within a certain framework that doesn't go beyond a certain number. Then you're going to need to charge accordingly for the different products so that the income you make, the revenue you make from your business is more than the cost that it takes to keep your business alive. And that right there is your profit. That's just for that business. The profit you make is now what you're going to use for your personal fixed and variable expenses to keep you sustained, for your rent, for your car, for your insurance. You're going to have your own fixed expenses. And for your free time, you're going to have your own variable expenses. And that income that you bring, your goal is to have that have the income you bring be sufficient enough to take care of all the expenses that you personally have. And after taking care of that, the goal should be to have extra so that you can think about your future. Let's say, you're living in a place like Oregon where it rains a lot, and your pastries are good, but sometimes, some days people won't want to come as often as they do in the summer. That means during certain seasons, you may not be bringing home as much money as you do in other seasons. But when you budget and you allocate some of your income, a significant amount of your income, at least 20% according to the budgeting rule, you're now preparing yourself for the seasons in which you're not bringing home as much income, so that you don't have to stress. You have money in your savings for those rainy days. Now, I know a lot of you guys don't have jobs now, but it's important to think about, because a lot of things are built off of, consistency is built off of the habit that you start. If you start to develop the habit of saving whatever money you get while still enjoying yourself, then when you do start to see more streams of income into your life in the near future, you already have developed the habit of knowing that you have to save. And you may even inspire your friends to do the same thing. So I'll use that in transition to, we only have a couple more slides left. We talked about income. We talked about a little bit about assets, but I'll go into this a little bit. So no matter where no matter the money that's coming in from income or what you're spending on, taxes isn't everything. You get taxed on the money that's coming in, your income. You get taxed on food purchases. You can go to Chipotle, and when you look on the menu and it says $7.95 for a bowl, I haven't been there in a while. I don't know if it's exactly $7.95. You're not going to pay exactly $7.95. There's going to be a sales tax when you get to the cash register to add on to that $7.95. When you invest in Apple, like the example I gave you before, or you want to invest in Nike, or you want to invest in any of the other companies, there are taxes associated with that too. Quick example. If you wanted to invest in Apple, and to invest in Apple, it costs a certain amount. If Apple does really well, what you spent to invest in Apple, you may have more now. That the share that you bought for Apple could have appreciated to a higher amount. And if you let go of Apple, like you've seen that it's increased in value, you don't want it anymore, you give Apple back for another person to invest in, that added amount you can be taxed on. And then for gas and other things, travel, tax is everywhere. And you need to factor taxes into your budget so that whatever number, whatever amount you're seeing on the display of things, whoever is interested in getting the new Xbox Series, I'm thinking about getting one. If I go on Amazon and I see that the new Xbox, I'm actually going to look it up right now, is 200, the Xbox Series S is coming up as $299. That's going to be taxed. I'm not paying just $299. So whenever you create your budget, leave room for tax to take some of that space. And I want you guys to start differentiating between what your needs are and what your wants are. Your needs are what you need to sustain yourself. You need soap to be clean, but you may want to smell a little extra better for your friends, your boo, whatever, and you may want to smell better than just the soap. Maybe you want to get some nice fragrances at the mall. Those are wants. There's a distinction. You need transportation, and your parents can drop you off wherever you need to go. But some of you want your own car. You want your own whip to get to where you want to go. That's a want. And it's good to have wants, but you need the funds to have wants. And until you have the funds to have wants, you need to budget accordingly. If you have a budget, or when you create a budget, if your expenses are more than what your income is, start to think about the wants and needs. And if there are wants that are taking up space in your budget category in the expenses section, start cutting off some of those wants to leave room for the essentials, and so that you're not at a loss. So we're going to do a quick little case. I'm going to read it out to you, and I want you guys to think about the different ways that Cheryl can cut down on her expenses so that she can go on a vacation with her family. So I'm going to read it out, and then I want you guys to share in the chat box what she can do to leave more room for fun so that she can take her family out to vacation. Cheryl's a single parent. She has 2 children, ages 5 and 9. She works as a receptionist and makes $26,000 a year. Cheryl pays $700 a month in rent for her 2-bedroom apartment. She has been unemployed for a few months before she found her job. And during that time, she incurred $2,200 in credit card debt. And she's essentially getting taxed. Her credit card is charging her 25% annual tax. That's broken down into 12 months, so about 2% a month in addition to the $2,200 she owes. Even though it's a struggle to pay the credit card bill, Cheryl always pays it on time. That's good. Cheryl's kids have 2 good friends in the neighborhood, Danny and Latanya, and when they come over, Cheryl often ends up feeding all the children dinner and taking care of Danny and Latanya until their parents get home. She may not have factored that into her budget. She may not have factored in that she'll be feeding more than herself and her 2 kids, but also her kids' friends. Cheryl's office is in a downtown shopping area, and she likes to stop in at her favorite clothing store during her lunch break. While she usually waits until items that she likes are on sale, sometimes she makes an impulse buying decision and uses her credit card even though the item may not be on sale. Cheryl is planning to take her kids on vacation in 3 months to visit her grandparents in another state. She needs to save $1,200 for the plane tickets and travel costs. For the plane tickets and travel costs. What are some of the ways that Cheryl can cut down on her expenses so that she can afford to take the vacation with her family? Shower that chat box with answers. And we'll go through it quickly. Oh, sorry.
All right, I'm seeing a couple of responses now. What are some ways that Cheryl can cut down on her expenses? One says she cannot buy any more clothes, make her friends' kids pay for their own food. I think that's reiterated. She doesn't need to shop or feed the other kids. Maybe have their parents pay for the food. Carol should not shop as much. So it looks like there's some consensus on both of those.
Nice. I agree. Definitely no more impulsive shopping, and maybe she can encourage the kids' parents to pack an extra lunch. So on your free time, in constructing a budget, I want you to make a list of your income, which a lot of you may not be having it now, but play around with numbers and think about where you could get income from in the future, and think about what that income would be. And then list out expenses that you believe you'll have in the near future and see if they line up to still have extra at the end. And think about realistically what you can do with those extra funds and what you feel comfortable doing. Some people don't feel comfortable saving more than up to 20%. They feel like, they don't know if they're going to die tomorrow. They got to have a good time. They got to enjoy themselves. So they want to save, but maybe not 20%, maybe 10. Budgets are very unique, and they're unique to each person that creates one. Your budget is not going to look the same as someone next to you. And you have different interests. This is just a reminder of what the budgeting rule can look like, but you can alter these numbers to fit your style. Maybe your needs don't need to fill up 50% of your budget, and maybe your wants are not as much as 30%, which leaves more room for savings. These numbers can be played around with, but this is a nice foundation to build off of and to keep your wallet in check. Here's what a budget worksheet can look like. The time horizon is depending on your flow of income. If you're getting paid bi-weekly, you can list your salary and bank interest if you have a savings account. Savings account tend to pay you less than 1% a year. So if you have $1,000 and you kept $1,000 in your savings account, at the end of a year, you could make $1 or $10 interest, which is not a lot. But if you want to make more on your money, you could invest it, and we can talk about that in another presentation. But those are some of the incentives that people tend to use to put their money in investments rather than savings accounts, because there's higher payoffs. These are the various list of expenses that people tend to have as they get older. Groceries, dining out, daycare, if you have kids, car payments, car insurance, car repairs, emergencies. You want to leave room in your budget for the unknowns, the unexpecteds. You could always have money in your budget for gas, but what if you have a flat tire and you need to buy a new tire? You weren't expecting that, but having a savings account can prepare you for unexpected situations like that. This is an example of someone's budget on one column and what the actual expenses were, maybe when factoring in tax in different categories. So it looks like this person created a budget with expecting $2,510 income, but their actual income was more. So in doing this, they prepared themselves, or they structured their budget as if they're making less than what they actually would make, which is a very good technique to definitely keep your expenses in check and to keep your budget honest and easier to manage. At the end, though, even though they set their budget to be, their income to be less than what it actually was, their expenses turned out to be, their actual sum of expenses ended up being more than what they expected it to be. And it works out where if you look at the actual total expenses and the budget they created for themselves, the total income, their expenses were short of what the income was. So they actually spent under the amount that they allocated to how much they're making. Let me say that again. The total expenses that they had at the end of the month was less than the income that they budgeted, that they put in their budget, which means they actually had extra money left over. Budget busters, we just talked about the different unexpected expenses that can come, that can essentially bust one's budget. And savings a savings account provides you with a nice cushion with money available for budget busters. And after you subtract all your expenses and liabilities, which a lot of you don't have a lot of liabilities right now, when you subtract all your expenses from the total amount of money you have available to you in general, if there's money left over, that is your net worth. And that net worth is something that you want to continuously build as much as you can, so that when you retire, you have enough money left over to take care of yourselves. This is a little infographic to give you an idea of what the liabilities looks like in comparison to your net worth or your assets. Assets is on the left. It's when you add up all the cash you have, checkings account, the value of your cars if you have more than one in the future. And then liabilities is stuff that is taking money out of your budget, mortgage, student loans, things that you should think about in the future or may think about in the future. And if your liabilities is less than your assets on the left, you have a net worth. So key takeaways, it's important to create a budget and maintain that budget. It's important to maintain a steady net income so that you can afford the different things that are needed and that you want in your life. And it's important to have goals because those goals can be the engine that drives how much you could make in the future to sustain your needs and wants. So I hope you understand the different components of budgeting, and it's why it's essential in this presentation. And with that, I want to thank you for your time and thank you for paying attention and for participating. My contact information is at the bottom. If you have any further questions about investing or how to create an account, a savings account or a checkings account, feel free to email me or call, and I'm more than happy to answer those questions and get you in the right position to have successful financial futures. And Joanne, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Sydney. And thank you all for participating. The chat box was super active and, as young people call it, lit. Do you still say that? Thank you to Caitlin and the Livermore Public Library for having us today. If any of you want to know more about money and all the different kinds of things you can do with it, like invest it, use credit, pay for college, things like that, please let Caitlin know. We'd love to provide more programming if you're looking for it. I'll type my email in the chat box if any of you have any other questions about today's presentation. Otherwise, thank you all and have a great night.
And I do want to give a big thank you to Financial Beginnings California, Joanne and Sydney. And there is also a closing survey. So I put the survey up there. It should, the link to it should show up when you click out of the presentation. And it does ask if you're interested in any of the other topics that Financial Beginnings offers. And so we can take a look at maybe providing some of those presentations later. So thank you again so much, Sydney. You did great. And thank you all, everybody, for coming.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.